may be seated. So here's a basic observation that I've noticed to hold true in life. The more we have, the more we possess, the more time, the more money, the more energy, the more resources we direct toward protecting and maintaining what we have acquired. Car insurance, house insurance, content insurance, property insurance, alarm systems, security personnel, and of course, this day and age, the bane of my existence, passwords, passwords, passwords. You know, when I was a young man, the only password I needed to remember was the password for the lock on my bike chain. And boy, things have changed. Property, possessions, they're not just material things anymore. We have intellectual property laws, copyright laws, patent laws, even time. Time has become a commodity that we sell as a market commodity. We sell our time for a salary. We call this the economy of exchange. And the modern world today functions on an economy of exchange. Today's reading also contains within it an economy of exchange. This reading is a very interesting reading because it doesn't end well for two of the central characters. Ananias and his wife Sapphira fall dead at the feet of St. Peter. There is a lot of tension in today's reading, and that tension is between the old life that is symbolized by Ananias and Sapphira, the old life, and the new life that is represented by the disciples and Peter and the new emerging community. And the old life and the new life are in conflict or in tension with one another. Now, I like to go and look back at some of the more ancient languages when I translate Scripture, and my favorite language to look back and translate is Latin. Now, I work with Ralph Spence, the former bishop of this diocese, and he's always teasing me. He says, you know, that's your Catholic part coming out in you. You always go back to Latin. So one day I finally got up in public and I said, you know, people think I go back to Latin because I'm Catholic. I said, it's actually because Latin pairs better with red wine than any of the other languages. So if we look back at the Latin language and how it is presenting today's reading, there are two words that stand out as being worthy of further attention. And that is the word possession and grace. So let's talk about possession, okay? Possession is or represents the old life, and Ananias and Sapphira are the two central characters of the old life. We don't want to be like them, okay? Grace, gratia, is the new way of being, the new life, the life of grace that we have in Jesus Christ. This is represented by the disciples, the apostles, and the new community. This is the life we want to live. Okay? So there's tension in today's reading between the old life that we no longer want to live and the new life that we want to embrace. And that tension is sort of literary-wise encapsulated in these two Latin words: possession, possedebant, which is a verb, and gift, gratia, which is a noun. And that's important, okay, that they're verbs and nouns, because possedebant, possession, means literally, listen, literally, the life we don't want to live is a life where we seize. It means to seize. Possession means to seize, to hold on to secure, to have mastery over. In other words, the disposition of the person who lives the life of possédébant, possession, is a person who has the disposition toward taking. They want to take everything. They want to seize everything. They want to have mastery over everything. And the husband and wife today represent that life, the life that we want to walk away from. On the other side is gratia, gift. That's a noun, and it means new life and grace. It means favor, goodwill, friendship, kinship, gratitude. The disposition of the person who is living the new life of grace is that they are receptive. And dispossession is the act of the person who is living the life of grace. Dispossession, the freeing or the liberation of my vital energy away from manipulating and protecting everything toward being receptive. So the new life of grace, the new life that we all want to aspire to, is a state. It's a state of life. It's a state of mind and a state of being. And it's radically defined by openness to possibility. Openness, radical openness to the act of gratuity. And the word that is used is resurrection, as that act of absolute and radical hospitality on the part of God, a givenness that is beyond our ability to control. So you see, we have in one sense possédébant, the life that we want to leave behind, the grasping life, the controlling life, the insecure life, in order to take hold of the new life, which is a life of grace, marked by what? Openness to possibility. And why is that important? Because the gospel begins with the promise to Mary, with God, nothing is impossible. Isn't that interesting that in the Acts of the Apostles we are back at the story of the Annunciation and the promise of ultimate grace. With God, all things are possible. Now look around the world that we live in today. This economy of exchange that dominates. The economy of exchange dominates everything. We live in a world that is based on the principle of possession and mastery and mastering security. Think of some of the catchphrases that we've heard in the past few months and weeks and years, things that we don't even question anymore. Let the markets decide. That's terrible. That's terrible, let the markets decide. The fair is fair. Second place is the first place loser. Right? That's the world that we live in. Yes, it's true, Dan. The more we have, the more time, the more energy, the more resources we direct toward protecting what we have. And I call that the economy of exchange. Because the economy of exchange works on one basic, and I say flawed, assumption. What is that assumption? I have this, whatever this is, I have this, therefore, you owe me that. That's the economy of exchange. I have this, you owe me whatever it is. We become consumed by this logic. Our time, our money, our resources, our psychic energy, our lives, our countries, our economies, everything has become directed toward protecting our possessions. And the logic behind it goes unquestioned. The economy of exchange goes unquestioned. We don't even question it anymore. I have this, therefore you owe me that. And in a couple of weeks we are going to participate in the social ritual called Black Friday, which encapsulates the best of the worst of the economy of exchange. I have this money, therefore you owe me that. What's that? Cheap things, cheap. And we don't question it. We go bananas, we go berserk, and we can't wait for it. Consumed by consumption. Consumed by consumption, or rather, might I say, consumed by the energy that we waste on consumption. We go about our lives. Impelled toward what? Impelled toward what? Today's reading from Acts sounds harsh, doesn't it? At first it sounds very harsh, at least for Ananias and his wife Sapphira. They drop dead at St. Peter's feet. Why do they drop dead at St. Peter's feet? After being and dealing deceitfully, they've dealt badly, they've lied, they've conspired about the distribution of their possessions. They want to be a Christian, but they don't want to give it all up like everybody else. Right? They want to be a Christian, but they don't want to act with grace. Where does their energy go? Where does their energy go? How far did Ananias and his wife Sapphira go to protect their things? Dishonesty, lie, deceit, conspiracy. Holy cow, it sounds like modern day politics. Seriously. And where does it take them? They are consumed. They're consumed by consumption. And they drop dead. There is no life left in Ananias and Sapphira. And the irony for them is that in the end, they can no longer control or manipulate. The economy of exchange is over for Ananias and Sapphira. There is nothing they can do. They are forced to resign and to receive a gift from God's hand. Oh boy, if Johnny Cash was here, he'd be singing sooner or later, God will cut you down. They are forced in the end to receive a gift, the gift of their death. They can't fight it. They can't protest. There's nothing they can do but receive the gift of death. After all of their manipulating, after all of their conspiring, after all of their lies, after all of their deceit, after all of their running away to hide, kind of like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, they come face to face with the one thing they can no longer negotiate: death. So I'm looking forward in a few moments to continuing this conversation in our Bible study.